Okay, everybody, as I promised, I'm going to do a part two so that we get our magical 150 hours of learning in. And I'm going to go back over here to the announcements. You'll see that I posted several announcements this week, invitations to virtual office hours, invitations to this, invitation to the ground-based portion of this class, as well as my schedule. And so I'm going to come down here to the part one, and I'm trying as we go along to keep some notes about what we've covered. Makes it a little easier for me and for you to figure out exactly where we had stopped. And we had stopped at chapter 10 where we had done some row functions. So the logical thing for us now is to go ahead and cover chapter 11. And so I'm going to go to the modules section. All right. And as usual, we are working ahead, significantly ahead, as I told you that we would do, so that as we come down to the finals and spring break and all that business, that you're in a position to focus on the last projects and the final exams that really round out the course. So we come down here and we are going to work on Lunches Database 11. And again, you will want to go into the files section. And you'll want to find the Patrick materials. And then the zip file, in that zip file, you're going to find the access code for each of the chapters. Those are the queries. Then you're going to find that SQL fund database. That is essentially your data warehouse that has the tables that we use for all the queries that we've been running. Okay? I have them downloaded on I have these downloaded on my computer already on my desktop. So each time as you come in, you'll want to do that. All right. So we go over here, and let's just, before we do this, well, I want you to look at, of course, obviously, let's go back to the modules for a minute, and we will see where we're at. And this week was the 28th we met. And so module 4, module 5, you see what we've got going on. And I have, of course, some resources there for you to take a look at. And that's module 5. Then we have module 6. So we're making some steady progress here. Okay, now I want to mention one other thing, and it's this, and you get the benefit of this because you get this second part. You always remember, schedule at this time of year. Really, as we move into, at any point in Oklahoma, because of the weather, we're either in tornado season or we're in snowstorms. And so you always have to be thinking about what will the weather be. And so, just as the OBU website says, pay attention to the local conditions where you're at if you commute to campus. So I do that, and because I have this technology, if I think it's necessary or it's better, I will just simply do a screencast from the office here. Now, I will always give you advance notice if that's what's going on, because if I plan to be in Shawnee, then I plan to be there for office hours, etc. If I'm not in Shawnee, then I have virtual office hours. The only day is Friday, and Fridays I just don't know what will be happening or what's going on. It just varies. And the truth is also that I try to take a chunk of that time on Friday, if I possibly can, as there are usually committee meetings, all kinds of different things going on, work that I need to do. And if I can possibly get to grading stuff, I do. But you notice most of this, if you've had several classes with me or a couple of classes, you notice I make everything due on Friday at 5 p.m. So Friday is one of those days that's extremely variable for me. So when you send me an email, on Friday morning, wanting to know if you can come by and get something signed, you should remember I've been there probably. If things go as normal, I'm there all day Monday after my one class. I'm there Thursday for 2 hours. So there's 6 hours. And, the truth is I have time between classes on Thursdays. And so it's not like I'm not around and you can't reach me. If you just want to put it off till Friday to get something signed, that's your problem, not mine. Okay? All right. Well, all that being said, we're going to work on Chapter 11 and the Lunches Database 11. And you should follow along with the Patrick text, the SQL fundamentals in Chapter 11. And I spoke about this some Thursday night about summarizing data. So over on page 399 in the textbook, we're going to walk through the process of summarizing data. Now, there's a very, very, very significant diagram or graph, and that's over on page 401. Page 400 shows you the various parts of Chapter 11. But over on page 401 in the Patrick text, they show you in that figure how we use summarization techniques to harvest data from the columns. In other words, we're going to look at column functions. And so now we can get data from row functions, obtain data from row functions. Now we're going to see how we can obtain data from column functions. And as you know, we can link tables together using referential integrity. And as you're going to see as we go on, we'll also be able to rename a table using an alias, and then we can really begin to build that data cube or that analytical cube that I've talked about throughout the course, so that we get a clearer and richer picture of our clients, our customers, and probably most significantly, events, transactions that occur, or internal operations that occur. Okay? So over here, we're going to be looking at the column functions. If you look at page 400, the maximum, you see that the functions, maximum and minimum, these are summarization or aggregate functions, count, the sum and the average, and then some of the other topics, and then the key points. But 401 really shows you how we harvest those records and come up with a result table that is a summary of all of the rows. Now, you're used to doing this in Excel if you work with a table that has multiple variables and then a list of records. And so that's really all that's going on. With the exception of this, what makes this so much more powerful is that we've been able to go ahead and summarize rows or use row functions that have included text as well as numeric functions. And now we can summarize what we have in the dimension in a row. And the authors walk us through that over on page 403 in column functions, and at the top of 402, they use those terms, group functions or aggregate functions. And they note something very important to us about how null values are treated and that they are ignored. There's only one column function that deals with them. okay? And that's the count function, and that's we count them, okay? So it's, again, the authors address this issue of null values, and the truth is, the common sense answer is this. And I've said it over and over and over again. If you go to work and you start to get reports that are missing data, then something's not right. If you're told to go and create some type of instrument, or you're part of a group of people who collect data from customers, or provide dimensions that help describe an event like a record, or describe a record, use the record to describe events, say like a purchase or something being shipped or something being received. Again, you have to deal with this issue. You have to fight and avoid null data at all times. That's just all there is to it, because null data has no meaning. And if you're paying for that, you're throwing money down. You're basically got to run around and throw money out in the wind. So let's look at these over here. And the authors talk about, and they show us these functions, the column functions for Oracle and for Access, and then what they mean. And notice these are just aggregate kinds of data that we would get. And then here are column functions that are for only numeric columns: the sum, the average, the standard deviation, and the variance. And then they give you some examples of how those column functions are used. And they show them using data, a text column, a number column, and a data column. Count, the count column, count distinct column. These are ways for us to summarize, and more importantly, to come up with subtotals and work our way through. Now, again, word to the wise, these functions are here and they work. But the truth is, when you go to work, you're going to probably be handling so many data that you'll either have a boss who'll say, take these data and convert them into an Excel file, or you'll be working with a commercial product that allows you to export those data into a spreadsheet application, or will produce them in a spreadsheet application for you without your even requesting it. You may have a system that's sophisticated enough to understand that while it's harvesting data from the warehouse, it's going to take the data that it knows that are numeric, that need to be manipulated mathematically to make any sense, and they'll be rendered for you. That's why there are people out there that have database management programs. That's why you have products out there like Tableau. Microsoft Strategy is another one of those products, because databases are designed to do one thing, a spreadsheet is designed to do another. And when you hear people talk about dashboards, the bottom line is this: without a data warehouse and the ability to pull data out of that warehouse effectively, you don't have a dashboard. So that's why this course is so important, because it's the foundation of everything that moves upward. Now, if you take a look over at page 405, and I'm going to go down to my desktop now, and we'll go to work a little bit on this. And you're going to see I have over here the Access SQL code. And I'll get that for, I'm going to open that up and I'll get it for chapter 11. Okay. There it is. And you'll notice I have lunches DB6 over here, and where's my code for chapter 11? There's chapter 10. There it is. And I'm going to go ahead and get into the Patrick materials. And I'm going to open that up. I'm on my desktop, and I'm just going to get the SQL fun. And I'm going to copy it and then paste it. And I'm going to call this, I'm going to rename it Harmon LD 11, meaning it's Lunches Database 11. Now, again, the tables that we are going to be working with will be here in this SQL fun, or this warehouse that's there with the Patrick materials. And then we'll also create tables as we've done throughout the course. Okay, well, let's look at this first one. This is and this is going to be 11.3, and it's over on page 405. Let's open that up, and we're going to use some of these aggregate functions on the employees table. So we'll open up the database. That's going to be all these oranges. Yes, I know, I understand. And we'll enable the content. And then, of course, when you're through doing your access file, you're going to want to upload it where it says upload 11 here. Got it? I think you do. All right, we're going to the query design. And we'll click close. And we'll go to the SQL view, and I'll paste this in. Now, here's a good habit for you. From here on out, as we run queries, you need to look up, or it would be smart for you to look up into the toolbar and see what type of query we're working with. Okay, as you can see, we're working with a select query. So we're set up here, and if you have the textbook or you're looking here, we obviously are going to get the data from the employees table, and here we're going to use some summary or aggregate functions, minimum and maximum. Okay, and then you're going to see if in the book some notations, and they'll explain some things about what they're doing there. Now, let me note one final thing. If you wanted to, for each of these, you could use the word as, and then use a field name that's more descriptive or less descriptive, depending upon your needs. If you wanted to mask the name of those columns, so if you want to protect your tables, so somebody doesn't know what's in there, that's the way to do it. And I'll give you an example here. I've got this. What I could do is minimum okay, as credlim, okay, and we've used an alias to make it more readable, just to make it more the name of the column or the dimension, the name, to telegraph more meaning to the end user. Okay. Now notice that we've got expressions here, and we got the expressions. And if you take a look over on page 406, okay, you're going to see the result. And we've done the summary. We've used aggregate summative data to look at the minimum credit limit, who has a maximum credit limit, and the maximum on the first name, the maximum on the last name, and the maximum on the hire date. Now notice that we have these expressions, and this is called 11, and we'll call this 11.3. We'll save it as 11.3. Okay. And if we want, we'll go back in here to the SQL view. And if we want to, we can add those descriptive names. One of the problems with doing that is Access can give you some fits if it thinks you're trying to invoke a function in the name of a column. It then thinks you're trying to do what we call an SQL injection, that is put executable code into a dimension, which means you can go anywhere in the data. And I don't want to get into all that, but the bottom line is, we could do this, and so if we wanted something there, we could put it as min cred, and I'm going to do this as max cred. And we'll do this as max first name. And then we'll do this as max last name. Now notice I'm running these all together. And this would be as max hire date from employees. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this now. See, we've done a little bit of altering. We've altered this just a hair. And we'll come back in here. I'm going to get rid of all of that. You say, can I put the whole new code in and run it again? Certainly. We're going to do that. Here we go. And there are. See, much better. More, the column names are more telegraphic rather than expressions. You got the expressions for a simple reason. You were performing an operation. This time it was on columns. Now, that's 11.3. And you see what I did there to come up with that. I went ahead and used the column alias. And then because I was using some function words, I ran the names together so there was no question that it's part of a name as opposed to trying to invoke a function. 11.4 is over on 11.4 is over on page 407, okay? And we're going to do that. So we'll close this off. 11, say yes. Okay. And then I'm going to click create, query design. No. And I'm going to go ahead and use the same SQL I did as before. But this time I'm going to infuse the where clause. So I'm going to come over here and where it says from employees, I'm going to get rid of the semicolon, and then I'm going to put where employee underscore ID between 202 and 206. And then we'll put in and we're going to run it. This time we're going to get the employee we're going to do that. We're going to execute the query on those employees where the ID is between the employee ID is between 202 and 206. So why would you do that? Well, it might be a particular period of time where you've done a particular set of hires. Maybe you changed a policy on insurance or something like that, or maybe it's vendors who came on board with you at a certain time. Oh, you used the where clause to limit it to everybody who had the employee between the employee IDs of 202 and 206. And of course, page 408 gives you the beginning table. And then and then in that middle table, it shows the where clause is applied to the beginning table. And then the column functions are calculated to create the result table. And there we are. Okay, so this is going to be 11.4. Notice again, I used the column aliases. So I just didn't have expression 1, expression 2, blah, blah, sitting there. And I made sure if I used anything that looks like it's a function, like min or max, I squeezed it together with something else so that it was clear I'm just using this as a dimension name, not as a function stuck in a column. Because there's security features built in, it won't let the query execute. So we've done 11.3 and 11.4. 11.5 is over at the bottom of page 409. And so we're going to do a step. He gives us a couple of methods to do some work here. So let's look at this. This would be 11.5, and we'll go into the text. And you see that I went ahead and put in. We just took this here and we inserted the where clause. We added the where clause. Excuse me. Now this is 11.5 method 1. Okay. And here it's a little bit different, but that's okay. And this is our first step. We're going to select the minimum credit level from the employees table. Now, in order to avoid getting something glitchy, I'm going to go ahead and use a column alias as min cred lim, so that I have a more telegraphic title for that column. Okay. Now, there are some companies that will even go so far. Here we go. There's our minimum credit limit of 15. And this is, we're going to call this 11.5 step 1. Okay. And now we're going to generate a 11.5 method 1 step 2. And I want to, let's see, I'll make sure I name that. Well, that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and go here to the query design. And now we're going to do method 1, step 2. And here we're going to use a Boolean function and get everybody whose credit limit equals 15. So we'll go down to the SQL view. And we'll run it. And there we are. And we're going to call this, we're going to save it as 11-5 method 1 step 2. And you see the results that we get with these two people, Ellen Owens and Paula Jacobs. Now they show you a second method, and this one is a little more nuanced. And this one we're going to use a subquery. I'll see what we're talking about here for just a minute. So are you telling me I can run a query inside a query? Yes. Just like if you've had classes with me, we've done nested if statements. If, and then the condition if it's true, the result if it's not true, and then a comma, and then we go on to if till the condition is satisfied. And if we can never satisfy the condition in that query, we get a default. I want you to look at this real carefully, okay, because this is going to crop up. We're using a subquery, okay, and notice here's the subquery. Watch what we're going to do. We're going to select employee ID, first name, last name, and credit limit from the employees table. It's good enough so far. Where the credit limit equals, and then notice this, we use a select statement embedded in a parentheses, all right, a select statement embedded here, and we have to be careful also so that we have an equal number on each side. But you see the select min credit limit from employees, and then we order by the employee. So here, this is the subquery. So this will be 11.5 method 2. You say, well, why would we do that? Well, over over on 411, the authors give you an outstanding explanation. It says, this is the subquery. Now, here's the deal. A subquery is one way for me to take a bunch of select objects. Watch what's going on here. Employee ID, first name, last name, credit limit from the employees table. Okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 dimensions I'm working with. The employee ID, first name, last name, and credit limit. Okay. A subquery lets me use the where statement to filter those or to drill down. In this case, we're going to drill down in terms of the minimum credit limit. Okay. Now remember, when we use the subquery in an aggregate function, it's got to be something that is an aggregate function. Minimum, maximum, you could do a count if they were numeric data and the credit limit is, you could do average, standard deviation, whatever you want to do. And then notice we follow up the subquery and then we do an order by. I'll throw this in here. And we're going to run it. And there we are. And this matches up with the results set at the bottom of page 410. This is going to be, we're going to save this as 11-5 method 2, and I'm going to call it subquery. I'm even going to telegraph it more. Subquery is used. Could we use multiple subqueries? Yes, we can. If we have more than one numeric data. Numeric data are the easiest to work with. So if we wanted to get the select the minimum credit limit, we could do that. And we could try to do a count of that. So we've got our answer there. So let's do this for just a second. Let's experiment a little bit here for just a moment. And I'm going to put in a second where clause. I'm going to try this. It probably will fail miserably. And here's the select. And here I'm going to count that may want me to let's see if this will run. Probably won't, but why not? Let's see what happens. I probably needed the select statement in front of it for it to work. So we'll just we'll create a query over here. And if it doesn't work, it's probably because I didn't put a select statement in front of that function, the count function. Let's see what, yeah. Now let's try this. See if that'll work for us. No. Well, that's one that went down in flames. Save it. So far, so good. I'll have to go back and take a look at that subquery. I probably needed a count distinct function. That's one of the problems when you get into working with those non-numeric data. Now, over on page 412, they show us just a little easier way to do this. Now we're going to move into the count function. And so we're going to click create, and we'll go to the query design. We'll go down to the SQL view. Okay. I'll go back over here to 11.6. Now, I want to show you what's going on here. Okay. We're going to select count. Then you see the asterisk, which you know means a wildcard. So we're going to select the count of the following counts: last name, the hire date, the manager ID, all of that from the employees table. So it says we're going to do a count, and we're going to grab all of those using the wildcard. So let's copy this and run it in and see what we get. And there we are. Now you'll notice at the bottom page 412, the author has the same numeric output, but we've got these expressions. And so we want to go back in here to make this look pretty. I'm going to go back into the SQL view. And this will be easier to work up here. Count. Call this as L name count, running it all together. As hire date count. And I think we'll be okay as long as we run them together. You notice how much more telegraphic they are. It's a lot better than just seeing something that says expression. And let's see what we get here. And we'll just throw this in there. I think it'll look much nicer and more telegraphic in terms of the column names than what we've got here. And there we are, much better. And I got still got a little bit of a problem up there. I've got the hire date count, last name count, and we should have a thing called the first name count. Let's go back in here to the SQL view. I want to see what we didn't do right. That one's a little pesky, isn't it? Now we did what we should with that. We've got well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to call this record count. Let's see what I get. There we go. We still don't have that first name count in there, and that bothers me. And we get the last name count. Oh, well, I'm a genius today. I'm putzing around here trying to get the first name count, and the truth is we're not using the first name in this query. So let's go back in there. Last name count. It's fine. Now it's fine. I wasn't needing the first name. And that would be, we're going to say that that's going to be 11.6. My apologies about that. Okay. Now, over on page 414, the authors start to show you what I was showing you already, and that is using the column alias as a way to telegraph the meaning of your column. And so we'll go down here to 11.7. And you'll see, notice we already jumped on that one, but that's okay. Using the column aliases, so we click create and query design. We'll go down to the SQL view, and we're going to run it. And there we are. And here you notice we've gotten the count, the number of columns, the number of rows, maximum, minimum, the sum, and the average from section 1107, that table. Now notice something. We got a column count. Now, if you look at the code in the book, at the top of page 414, what looks like something anomalous in terms of our results is explained quite easily. If you take a look here, you're going to see. I select the count, and notice I'm counting column 2 as the count column. Okay? And then I use the count function as count rows. So I count any rows that exist. Then I invoke the maximum function, the minimum function, the sum function, the average function, all of them on column 2. And we use the column alias. And there we are. And so we have 5 rows. If you look at that table, you'll see there's A, B, C, D, E, F. But we counted, when we counted the column, okay, we said count column 2 in terms of the number of columns. Well, because the data are null, technically there's no column there. Now you and I see null data in there. This is what I talked about with the problem of nulls and anomalous data. And then you have the 5 rows, and then the max, min, summary is a sum and the average. There's nothing there in column 2 to work with. When you get something like this in a report, you always want to ask yourself, what happened here? And it's probably, here's a situation where records simply were not entered like they should have been. This is going to be 11.7. When we start to talk about the number of distinct values in a column, that gets a little trickier. Now, there's over on page 414 and 415, they show you the Oracle SQL using the select count distinct. And then you'll see here at the bottom, they say select count distinct manager ID. So they're saying select, okay, perform the count function and get the distinct, i.e. unduplicated count for manager ID from the employees table. Now, there's a workaround over on page 416 for access, okay? And so we're going to do this. Here's workaround step 1. Oh, this will be the, click create. There's a query design. About page 4, yep, new table, that's good. And we're going to call this, we're going to save it, 11-8, workaround, step 1. Now let's talk about this for a minute. We're going to select the distinct manager ID, okay, into this table called section 1108 underscore step 1. And we're taking that data from the employees data. Now we're going to do the second piece of our workaround. And we're going to use the select count manager ID. Now, you see this little thing right here? Just delete it. Backspace it. And so we're going to select count. click create, query design, close, SQL. All right. And there we are. I got that expression 1000 with the answer. Now, if we want to, we can go ahead and we'll go back into the SQL view. I'm going to go up here where you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to use a column alias. I call it okay. We've been working with a few of these in here. Now I'm going to have some check your understandings that are part of the query writing I'm going to have you do as a project. So you need to have your ears and eyes open. Now run it, and there it is. And there's the column count. Okay, much nicer. And we're going to save this as 11-8 workaround step 2. It's okay. Well, again, clue me in. Okay. Well, in Access, in step 1, we were able to use select distinct manager. Okay. You have to run each query separately, as they tell you there in the notes. So we set up a table, and then we count from the table. In Oracle, if you take a look back at page 415, you're going to see that they use the select count, but count is in front of the parentheses, and so it works as a function. We don't have the count distinct function in Access SQL. If we want the number of distinct values in a particular column, if you look at the bottom of page 418, they show you Oracle SQL, so handles this a little bit better. In Access, as he shows you on page 419, we have to do a workaround. I'm just going to refer to the textbook. I'm not going to sit here and run the queries. The queries are there if you want to run them in the text files. The first step in the Access workaround is this. We're going to select distinct manager ID, credit limit, into this section 1109 underscore manager underscore credit table from the employees table. Okay, that's the first thing we've done. Okay, so we've done that. Then we use select count, and then we do the asterisk, the wild card from that table. and then we get the column count, and we can use the alias to get us that data. Now look, I want to talk to you for a minute about this. Most of these count functions are of really no use unless they're followed by a where's clause. Otherwise, why do you want to just count the number of people who have the last name Harmon? If it gives you the thrill it does me, then good for you. If it doesn't, then you'd want to know why. So again, if you look at the top of page 420, select count, wildcard, and then I would do where, and then from. Over on page 421, they show you the sum and the average functions. That's 1110. And take a look at it. A very simple select, and then we invoke the function, and then we bury the column within parentheses, comma, then the next function, we bury that within parentheses from the employees. Now, again, I would say you're going to want to add a column alias so you don't get just an expression. That's what the author's done. He was just too lazy to put the additional code in here. And he thinks, oh, dummies, you can figure it out. Okay, join the crowd. So we're going to sum the credit limit. We're going to get an average of credit limit from the employees table. And that's all that's going on in 1110. And you could add in, again, column aliases to get them done. Well, let's just do it over here. I'm going to call this as cred sum. As cred. And now we're ready. And we'll run, pardon me, and we'll run 1110. And there we are, the credit sum, the credit average. And that would be 1110. As we move on through the book, he shows us one of the problems that Access has handling addition operations. Okay. And the reason it does is because null values are not ignored in Access, whereas in Oracle, they're ignored. And they in 1111 give you a problem, an example of this problem. And bottom page 423 is the query with the problems in which we've performed operations, okay, that in Oracle ignores the null, but Access does not. And remember, we have two kinds of addition in SQL, row addition and column addition. Now, I got confused there for a minute. I'm very sorry and I apologize. Talking about the difference. Let me back up. Authors explain over on page, I think, 422. Here's the deal, okay? Row functions add up things within a row, i.e. a record. When it encounters a null value, then the null value is what you get. A column function, however, okay, it's a summarization function and it ignores null values. Now, I don't want to get into the reasons why it's like that, but take my word for it and take the author's word. That's how it is. And I'm going to say it again like I have 1,000 times. Never have records with null values. If they're null values, you can see the problems they create. If someone doesn't put the information in there, then you have junk. That's all there is to it. If it's in rows. Now, you may luck out with columns, and you can get some data from those, but so that's why 1111 is important for you. They show you the bottom there on page 423. An example of the problem with the addition. They show you the beginning table, and then they tell you what happens. So they show us a correct method over on page 425 on how to handle this issue. And what you do is you use the NZ function. If you'll see there in the middle of page 425, this is 1111 method 1. Let me pop it up here for you. Here it is. NZ means no nulls. So if a row function encounters a null, it just goes on and ignores it. And so we get a correct result. That's what the NZ function's for. And let's just go ahead and run it. And we got some nice column aliases. So let's go ahead and do it. We're here. I've talked about it. Create. The NZ function. Okay. And we come up with the columns added first. And then the row, and that's 21, and the rows added are 21. And this is 1111. In fact, I'm put 11-11 adding rows use NZ. Okay. Now, Oracle, as the authors tell you at the bottom of page 425, Oracle uses the NVL function. Um, the authors show you an explanation in terms of how the columns get added first, then the rows are added. Now the authors over here on page 428 talk about some other topics. Nulls are not always changed to 0, and they should not be, because you don't know what they are. The problem is you can't do anything with them. And you can't even assume. You said, well, it was the cost of shipping for this item. I'll put something in there. And the easy way out is to put something in there. Take a guess. Here's the problem. If you have a relatively large organization and you do that 1,000 times, guess what? You've got 1,000 pieces of junk floating around in your system. So again, if you're not going to use it, don't collect that data. And if you're going to collect the data, make sure you get all of it. Okay? There are going to be some situations where the company would be better off if they collected data electronically. Okay? And instead of relying on somebody with a pencil and paper to input some data or go online and put data into the company database. If you have that kind of thing, it's a scenario for a nightmare. You always ought to have them putting something into a temporary table that can get looked at and cleaned up, or questions answered about it. Null data are just they drive you crazy. They give you an example over here on page 421 when you should not, you shouldn't change them to 0. And they give you some explanations about that. The rest of the chapter walks you through, for example, counting the number of nulls in a column. Selecting distinct dates. As always with something like that, you've got a step around. That's over on pages 422 and 423. Well, there is not really a whole lot else I would want to add except this. The page 424 gives you a fantastic summary of, or set of key points about summarizing data. Okay. Number 2, avoid nulls at all plagues. At all. Do everything you can to stop from having null data. And that starts, as we talked about, in designing a table, so that a table record won't save unless you have something in every single column. If you're not going to use it, don't collect it. And if you're going to collect it. It's just common sense. There's no point to have a table with missing data. It's an exercise in stupidity. It's an exercise in futility. And worst of all, it's expensive. And volunteer organizations have lots of problems with this when they have people who collect data from events or collect data from clients directly. this is problematic, and I really don't know how in the world you could get around it, except it maybe requires some training. But the main thing is data collected like that really ought to be sequestered off before they're ever used as an official report, because you don't know for sure, especially if the data are missing. And so if it's like somebody fills out a card or a slip or a piece of paper, or they can leave something off, that's kind of different. But if it's something that they someone's entering something on a laptop or at a kiosk or whatever, that record should not save if you don't have the data. And never ask for data that you don't need. It's useless. Well, that's pretty much it. That's chapter 11. That'll do it. And on summarizing data, on chapter 12, and we'll talk about that next week, we'll deal with controlling that level of summarization. That's where we start to get into things like subgroups, sub counts, things of that nature. Okay. Well, you can upload your 11, and away we go. So I'll close that off. And I'm going to go ahead and come back over here. I'm going to go into the files section, and I'm going to upload this file. It's on my desktop. I'm going to Harmon 10. I'm going to take Harmon LD11, Lunches Database 11, and open it up. Hopefully it will load up for us. It's seeming to take its time. There it is, it's there. And then I'll find Harmon. I'll make sure it's published. So if you want to use it, there it is, it's published. Good. Okay. All right, folks, I'll stop the share and stop the recording, and I'll process this and put it in your announcements.